the last decade, Cell has been working on several indigenous languages for the purpose of preservation and documentation. And Cell also takes initiative to reach a larger community of dedicated researchers and professionals, and is making effort to provide grants and scholarships to facilitate research in lesser known languages in the remote corners of our country. Most of us here participated in the International Conference for Endangered and Lesser Known Languages, also called ELKL, which is organized by CEL every year in various universities and institutes across the country. In addition, CEL makes provision for the linguists and language activists to publish their work on lesser known and endangered languages in their bilingual, biannual, peer-reviewed e-journal called Vak Manthan. Most importantly, CEL encourages, instructs, and trains dedicated, passionate researchers through workshops, online lectures, and various online activities. This evening, CEL is conducting the 5th session of For CEL by CEL series, where CEL members present their ongoing research and an expert, who is also a senior CEL member, provide guidelines and suggestions. This evening, our presenter is Reshma Jacob, who's a faculty in Christ University and a member of CEL. She's going to talk on phonological aspects of heritage Konkani. Well, Konkani language is an intriguing subject for me, particularly because of its history of linguistic affiliation and the way Konkani attained its languagehood. As I read in the literature, Konkani was considered a dialect of Marathi. And after Goa became liberated from Portuguese rule, there was a proposal to merge Goa with the neighboring state of Maharashtra. But voices of Konkani protagonists said that Konkani developed quite independently from the Middle Indo-Aryan languages. And mere paucity of literature cannot deprive a language from attaining its status. And then in 1992, of course, Konkani was included in the 8th schedule of Indian Constitution as one of the India's national languages. And much before that, in 1976, Sahitya Academy recognized Konkani as one of the literary languages of India. I'm very grateful to Reshma for sharing her ongoing research on Konkani. Our expert for this evening session is a distinguished linguist and a popular personality, Professor Niladri Shekhar Das, who is the head at the Linguistic Research Unit, Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata. He is also the editor-in-chief in the Journal of Advanced Linguistic Studies. Professor Niladri Das shows expertise in various domains of linguistics, like corpus linguistics, natural language processing, computational lexicography, field linguistics, language documentation and digitalization, applied linguistics, Bangla language and linguistics, educational technology, language teaching, machine translation, and many more. To mention a few of his outstanding contributions, Professor Niladri Das developed the first digital Bengali language corpus, the first digital Bengali reference dictionary, and the first digital Bengali pronunciation dictionary. We welcome you on the forum, Professor Niladri Das. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
May I now invite the presenter for this evening, Reshma Jacob.
Thank you so much for this warm welcome. Am I audible?
Yes.
Great. I'm very happy to present my paper in front of all of you, and thank you so much for this opportunity. May I know how much time do I have to present the paper?
Well, I think
Thank you.
it's you can present at 40, 45 minutes. 45 minutes can present. I think you have a whole lot of time because it just started. It's 7:06 now.
Okay, all right. I'll try my best to finish it as soon as possible, and I'll just share my screen right now. Um, yeah, is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, as it has been told, my topic is phonological aspects of heritage Konkani. I've been working on heritage Konkani for quite some time now, and like it was mentioned earlier, Konkani has a very special status in our country because it is one language that uses different scripts, right? And it also has this history of how it came into being or how it was suppressed and how it was revived and all of that. So I'll be looking at the phonological aspects of heritage Konkani spoken in Kerala. So, the Konkanis migrated from Goa to Kerala in the 16th century during the Portuguese Inquisition. A lot of them, you know how what has happened with the Konkani language as a result of Portuguese Inquisition. The language was suppressed, the literature was burnt, the books were burnt, the people were asked not to speak in Konkani, rather, learn Portuguese. And a lot of people fled their homeland because they wanted to preserve Konkani and they wanted to preserve the Konkani identity. Both identity and language had to be preserved, and a lot of people fled from Goa to the neighboring states. And some of them came to Kerala as well. They found their home in Kerala, different parts in Kerala. So the Konkani population in Kerala is very scattered. As you can see in the map is of Kerala, and the districts highlighted in green is basically where the Konkani population can be found now. So we can see the Konkani population in the northern district of Kasargod, as well as in Ernakulam, the central part, and then coming to the southern part, we have it in Alleppey as well as in Trivandrum and all. So what has happened here is that Kasargod, that is the northern part of Kerala, the Konkani spoken there is very much influenced by Kannada. That is, Karnataka is the neighboring state, and the Kannada Konkani and the Konkani spoken in Kasargod is very much similar. And when you come down to southern part of Kerala, what has happened is that the Malayalam influence is very predominant on Konkani. So, a lot of phonetic, phonological, morphological, and syntactic features of Malayalam has its effect on Konkani right now. And the speakers have also, because they've been living in Kerala for very many centuries now, and it's natural to have that influence of the dominant language. Now, talking about heritage Konkani, heritage language is basically the language of immigrants, where the language that they speak is minority in nature. Where, say for example, here in this particular case, they are settled, the Konkanis from Goa, who migrated from Goa in the 16th century. They are living in Kerala right now. They have been living in Kerala for many centuries now, and the dominant language of the state Kerala is Malayalam. And therefore, the primary language that the Konkanis as well as the Malayalis of Kerala use is Malayalam. Even Konkanis use Malayalam for all the official purposes, in their social domains, in their educational spaces, in their political spheres. They'll be using Malayalam, which is the primary language of the state, which is the official language of the state. But then when it comes to their household domain, now we know that the Goan Konkanis migrated to Kerala to preserve their Konkani identity and language. And for a very long time, if you look at the history of Konkanis in Kerala, for a very long period of time, the Konkanis were living in isolation, because although majority of Konkanis in Kerala belong to the upper caste, they're mostly Brahmins. They did not get along really well with the Nambudiri Brahmins of Kerala, uh, because of reasons like they had to cross the sea, and at that time and age it was believed by the Kerala Nambudiris that if you have to cross the sea, then that's an ill omen or evil. Also because of the food habit, food preferences, the Kerala Nambudiris or the Kerala Brahmins are pure vegetarians, and Goan Brahmins used to have fish in their diet. So these differences force the Konkanis to live in isolation for a very long time. And that, in a way, has helped the Konkanis to preserve their language. So, what has happened is that for a although they came in the 16th century, even today we have Konkani in Kerala, right? Even today we have people speaking Konkani. And what is even more interesting is that they use Konkani in their households within their community. Now, the Konkanis are this community who live around a temple. So a temple, there are of course other Konkanis living outside the arena of temple, but most of them live around, in and around the temple, because that is more like that's a glue that keeps them together, the religious rituals and activities and all of that. They speak in Konkani within their households, as well as within the community members. When they come to temple, when they meet somebody from their community, they switch to Konkani. And Konkani is also their first language. So although they are living in a space where Konkani is a minority language, they are trying to preserve their language as much as possible. But obviously, the long duration, as in they have been living in Kerala, has affected the structure of Konkani as well. Yet they try to speak Konkani. The first language is Konkani, that is a home language. But then by the age of 3, they get introduced to Malayalam. And in today's time, even before the age of 3, a child is introduced to Malayalam because of movies, television, and all of the other influences. And they learn English much later, after the age of 5, when they reach school. And in an attempt to preserve Konkani, in Kochi, there are not just in Kochi, but even in other parts of Kerala, we have schools run by the Konkani speakers, wherein Konkani is taught as one of the languages. So this is the situation right now, the language situation right now. And what is also interesting is that the Konkanis in Kerala belong to different castes. So we have GSB, which is the Gauda Saraswat Brahmins. We have Saraswat non-Brahmin, Konkan Sonar, Vaishya Vaniyar, and Kudumbi. So Kudumbis belong to the lower caste, and GSBs are of the upper caste. Now, GSBs, when they migrated, they got the others along with them as their helps and all of that. Kudumbis as their house helps, especially, and others also came with GSB. Now, what is interesting is that, or in my research, I have focused on uh, Konkani speakers who are living in Ernakulam, Kochi. So that is to avoid any data manipulation or any of that, because the other people, Konkani speakers in other parts of Kerala, will have different dialectal and regional influences. So to avoid that data manipulation, I've only focused on Konkanis living in Kochi. And I'm also focusing on Gauda Saraswat Brahmin, because Konkani has caste dialect. So what is interesting is that all of these different categories of Konkanis are living in the same locality, maybe 1 kilometers or 1 kilometer or 2 kilometer away from each other. They live in a lane. So I've been to that place for my field work. So they all GSBs live in one lane, and then you have Konkan Sonas in another lane, Kudumbis on another lane. So, although they're living in such close proximity, the variety of Konkani each of these community speaks is very different. Not very different, it's mutually intelligible, but still it is different in terms of its sound pattern and structure and all of that. Now, what we can also say is that GSBs, that is the upper caste Konkani speakers, are the ones who are still managing to preserve the language. The Kudumbis, who are in the lower caste category, they have already assimilated with the Malayali community. They no longer use Konkani in their households, and even if they speak Konkani, their Konkani is very different from the other variety. So and a lot of Kudumbis have, like I said earlier, assimilated with the Malayali community, even in terms of their identity. They don't even, when you ask for their identity, when you ask the question, who are you, or how would you describe yourself, they wouldn't say they're Kudumbis or Konkani speakers from Goa. Rather, they would say that I'm a Malayali. So they have assimilated to that level, but GSBs still maintain a very clear boundary, and they say that they are Konkanis living in Kerala. So that is what is interesting about the Konkani community. So in this today's presentation, the research questions that I'll be dealing with are what you can see on screen right now. One, what is the current language situation of Konkani in Kerala? Which, more or less I have already discussed it, but we'll also discuss it a little later. And the next one is, what is the phonemic inventory of heritage Konkani in terms of vowels and consonants? So this is a descriptive work, because to my knowledge, no other works have been done in documenting heritage Konkani in Kerala. Obviously, there are works documenting the phonetic and phonological aspects of Goan Konkani, but the heritage Konkani in Kerala has not been documented so far. So this is a descriptive work where I am looking at the phonemic inventory of heritage Konkani. And I'll also be looking at the stress pattern in heritage Konkani, and we'll also see how is the phonemic inventory as well as the stress pattern in heritage Konkani spoken in Kerala similar or different from Goan Konkani. So what are the influences? What kind of changes are there in the heritage Konkani spoken in Kerala? So these are the important questions that we will be looking at in today's presentation. So again, talking about the current language situation, as I told you, there is caste dialect. Each of the different caste members have their own variety, which is mutually intelligible, but still different. So, and another thing that is very interesting is that all of the Konkani speakers are highly multilingual, in the sense that they have their first language is Konkani, and their primary language or dominant language is Malayalam, because that's what they're using outside their household. And they also speak, they're also very fluent in Hindi. Some of them are also, very fluent in Gujarati and other Indo-Aryan languages. So all of us know three languages for sure. That's Konkani, Malayalam, Hindi, and a lot of others also know English as well. So they're highly multilingual, and most of their linguistic repertoire consists of at least four languages that belong to different language families. Um, Now, talking about the current language situation of Konkani in Kerala, it's certainly not thriving because of various factors, and some of the factors that are not helping Konkani to thrive is that one is a lack of a proper script. Now, there was a time when Malayalam was used as the Malayalam script was used for Konkani as well. But then, due to a lot of other political concerns and all of that, they shifted to Devanagari. So if you ask, a Konkani speaker who is 35 plus or 45 plus to read Konkani written in Devanagari script, they will not be able to do that. But the youngsters today are able to read Konkani in Devanagari script, because that is what is being taught in school in the recent times. And so, yeah, the lack of proper script and the absence of literary works in Konkani have also adversely affected the heritage Konkani of Kochi, and which is why it's not thriving. Also, the aspect, when you look at it in terms of attitude perspective, they're very much for the language. They don't have a negative attitude towards the language. They have a very much positive attitude, although the scope of language use, the Konkani language use is very limited. They are very particular about speaking in Konkani in their households or within the community. So that's about the current language situation. And for the rest of my studies, I have collected data from a total of 40 speakers, 20 male and 20 female speakers, based on their availability. And I have particularly collected my data from GSBs, Gauda Saraswat Brahmins from Kochi, because like I told you earlier, um, Konkani speakers from other parts of Kerala have regional influences in their Konkani, as well as other castes will all. If I take data from all the different subcastes of Konkani, there will be a lot of mismatches. So in order to avoid that, I've only chosen GSBs from Kochi. And how have I collected my data? I have had formal interviews as well as informal interviews, and I preferred informal interviews more so that I can get a spontaneous speech. But then I also had the word list and basic word list and basic sentence list that which Dr. Anvita Abhi had published. So that's what I had used. Now one thing is that because of this, being a minority language for a very long time, um, there are a lot of variations, um, in the language. So if you ask one speaker what is a word for river, they would say nahi, and the other one would say nahi, and they'll have a dispute over that, because not everyone is sure about what is the right word, because it's not been properly documented. They don't have like a proper dictionary, or although it is being taught in school, only the basic, only till third standard or something it is being taught. So that is also there. So um so like I said, there are different realizations for the same lexeme. If you ask around people within the same community who are living together, there will still be so many variations. So here I have some examples here. So the word for gravel is songro, and some said sorongo. Word for foot is paul and paul. Some minor deviations and variations were found in the language. Moving on to the phonemic inventory. So these are the vowels that have been found in heritage Konkani in Kerala. So we have e, a, u, o. So Konkani has a distribution of 8 vowels, and along with these short vowels, there are the longer counterparts as well. And I've also done a phonotactic distribution of the vowels. So according to the, after a close analysis of the data, it was found that the vowels e, o, u, a are found in the initial, middle, and final position. And they were the occurrence of sound a was very rare in the initial position. It was only found in a borrowed word, in fact. And yeah, and even the nouns ending in a was also very rare. So I'll show you the phonotactic distribution of the vowels here. So I'm not sure if it is very visible, but yeah. So the vowels e, a, sorry, E, R, O, U, A were found in the initial, middle, and final position. So you can see the data on my screen. And the long vowels E, A, O are only found in the medial position, not in the initial or final, but only in the medial position. And the vowels a and u are found in initial and middle positions and not in the final positions. Again, the vowels a, o were found in the middle and final positions and not in the initial positions. So this is the phonotactic distribution of the vowels of heritage Konkani. Now, like I said, there are long vowels as well. So all short vowels and their corresponding long vowels are in contrastive distribution. So I have shown here, minimal pairs for the long and short vowels. Um, I think I don't have to take you through all the examples. You can see it for yourself. Moving on, there are also diphthongs such as ow, I, a, and oi. Now, this is interesting because some of these vowels and diphthongs that we have just mentioned are not there in Malayalam. So, despite being in a land where Malayalam is the dominant language, and despite using Konkani only in a limited space, they have still maintained most of the phonemes in Konkani. So, a or oi, or the vowels, the central vowels like a, these are not part of the Malayalam phonemic inventory, and it is still maintained in the Konkani phonemic inventory. Now, talking about certain things being maintained, we should also discuss about what is being lost in Konkani. So, nasalization, for that matter, is a very important feature of Konkani, and we can see again minimal pairs of nasalized vowels and non-nasalized vowels. So these are the minimal pairs for nasalized and non-nasalized vowels. But again, this nasalization was not realized by all the speakers. Only a few, especially, and again, it was interesting to note that the youngsters were in fact, using the nasalized forms. Or they were realizing the nasalized forms more often than elders. And when you look at elders, the male informants were sometimes confused, sometimes did not know the right Konkani word for the word I asked them. So that's because the Konkani, in the Konkani community that is settled in Kochi, the males are the ones who are always what do you say, go outside, they run their businesses, so they're mingling with the Malayali committee on a much larger scale than women. So women, a lot of them are still homemakers, and their uh, dominant language is Konkani as well, because they don't get out of their households, or come out of the community very often, or mingle with the Malayalis so much, and therefore their Konkani is strong. Although that Konkani is different from the Goan Konkani, it has the influence of Malayalam. Their Konkani is much stronger than the Malayalam. And again, talking about nasalized vowels in Konkani, it has multiple uses, or it also has grammatical functions. So to mark plurality, or to mark past, the past tense, they use nasalized vowels. But again, not everyone uses it. Only a handful of them who are trained in Konkani, who have learned Konkani in school, officially been trained, and especially youngsters, have produced these nasalized vowels, and others did not. So if you can see this set of data here, so the word for dog, the Konkani, so there are three genders: masculine, feminine, and neutral. So dog, masculine singular form is petto, and plural is pette. Feminine singular of dog is hitti, feminine plural is hittion with nasalization. Neutral singular is sune with nasalization, and neutral plural is suni with nasalization. And same goes with cat as well. So there is masculine, feminine, neutral for all of these nouns. So but then, like I told you, not everyone uses the nasalization for marking the plurality. Now, if say for example, petto, if I ask for the singular of petto, that is a dog, masculine singular, they'll say it is plural, the pette, masculine plural. But then if I ask for the feminine plural of dog, so the singular is hetti. If I ask for the feminine plural, which is supposed to be hettio with nasalization, they would say mastu hetti or bornu hetti. Hitti. So Masta or Bornu is many. It means many. So instead of using the plural morpheme which has nasalization, they would just avoid it and use this word many dog and many cat, right? So that's what um, many of them or most of them are using. So nasalization, the grammatical function of nasalization is not being used right now. So you can see the plural realization here as well. So animal, the word for animal is mraga, singular, and plural is supposed to be mraga, but then they say it as bornu mraga. And just look at the last example here. The word sister, the Konkani word is Aki. The plural is supposed to be Akio with nasalization, but what is being realized is Akimar. Now, what is interesting here is that Mar is a Malayalam morpheme. It's not a Konkani morpheme. So the Malayalam word for sister is Chechi, and Chechi, the plural of Chechi is Chechi Mar. So that plural morpheme is attached here as well. So basically, nasalization is slowly out of the phonemic inventory of Konkani, or they're not using it anymore. So I have another example to prove that nasalized vowels are substituted very often. So here, what has happened is sangile, uh, a. So in all of these words, there are nasalized vowels. But how are they being realized now by most majority of the speakers? Is that the nasalized vowel is removed and l becomes nasal na, right? So sangine, dakkene, or kartani, right? So instead of kartali, it's kartani. So that nasalization is retained, but not through nasalized vowels, but by substituting a nasal consonant. So that is what's happening in Heritage Konkani right now. Um, yeah, so I wouldn't say that it's completely lost. Nasalization in Heritage Konkani is completely lost, but it is getting very minimal in Heritage Konkani. So that's about nasalization. Moving on to consonants. So this is the phonemic um, chart of consonant sounds in Heritage Konkani. Now, this also looks a lot different from the Malayalam phonemic inventory. Now, I'm constantly comparing it with Malayalam because it was assumed that since Konkani has been used in Kerala for many centuries, it has lost a lot of its properties and has the influence of Malayalam, which is why there is this constant comparison between Konkani and Malayalam. But yeah, so as you can see, there are aspirated stops like pha, bha, tha, dha, tha, dha, kha, gha, and they're all contrastive in nature. And there are also nasal aspirates like mha, nha, also approximant aspirates like vah, or lateral approximant aspirate like l, right? So these are the sounds that are not there in Malayalam, but they are realized in Konkani. But then again, the usage is getting very minimal. There is it was also noted that I should have told you this before, but um, recent it has only been in fact 1 century since the Konkani started mingling with the Malayali community so much, because of various political and historical reasons. They were living as an isolated community, and that helped them preserve the language. Now that they're outside of that cocoon and mingling with the Malayali community, living along with them, doing their business with them, going to school with them, there is a lot of Malayalam influence, and these aspirated sounds are also getting very minimal in their usage. So again, there is a phonotypic distribution of consonantal sounds. So these are the word initial consonants. There are word medial and word final consonants. And it was also observed that the sounds sir and sh are occurring in free variation. So here are the examples. So tender coconut is shiale and siale, ushe and usse, shiana and sana. So all the speakers said that both the usages are fine. So I have tested it with other words as well, but yeah, so it is found that sir, sure are in free variation. Now, talking about aspiration, um, as although there are these many aspirated sounds in the phonemic inventory, they are not recognized or realized in fast speech in word medial or final positions. But in initial positions they are realized, but in medial and final positions they are not realized. But then if I ask them again in slow and steady repetition of that particular word, they would say that no, that has aspiration in there. They would correct me as well. But then in fast speech, the aspiration was not observed. And now again, this is of interest because even in Malayalam we don't have this many aspirated sounds. At least it's not phonemic in nature. And aspirated sounds like ma, na, la, va, these are absolutely not there in Malayalam, and therefore the usage of these aspirated sounds are getting minimal, or they have different variations for words with these particular sounds. So I have given you some examples here. um, so let's look at the word for groom's procession. So it's the heritage Konkani word is Bhorana, V with an aspiration, Bhorana. But um, now it's been realized as Horana and Vorana without an aspiration. Same with Bhonni, elder brother's wife. It's either realized as Hunni or Onni. Most of these like sounds, aspirated sounds that are not there in Malayalam are being replaced, or the aspiration is dropped, or it is substituted by the her sound, as you can see here. So her is either realized as her or simple wo. But then aspirated sounds like the, bha, these are retained. We can see those sounds in Malayalam as well, although not used in casual speech by even the Malayalam speakers. It's still there, and therefore those sounds are maintained, and what is not there in Malayalam is also is being dropped from heritage Konkani as well. So that's about the aspiration. Now, moving on to syllables, after analyzing the syllabic structure, what is so we have light syllables, which are of 1 second. Yeah, we have light syllables. CV, VC, and V, heavy syllables that are CV with a long vowel and CVC with a coda, and super heavy syllables. Now, super heavy syllables are very rare, but these are the structures that I could find. And HK, that HK is Heritage Konkani. It also follows the maximum onset principle. That is, according, the intervocalic consonants are considered as onset first, and the sonority hierarchy is not being violated here. So in most of these cases, syllable peak is a vowel, and there are some instances where nasalized vowels and diphthongs also form syllable peaks, but in most of the cases syllable peak is a vowel. Now, now that we know about the syllable structure, we'll move on to stress. So bisyllabic words, the skeletal structure of bisyllabic words were of sorry, the stress, heaviness of the syllables were LL, that is two light syllables, HH two heavy syllables, HL heavy light, LH light heavy syllables. So in such cases, what happens is, if we have in a bisyllabic word, if there are two light syllables, the stress will always fall on the the first syllable, or even if it is too heavy syllable, the primary stress falls on the first syllable. And if you have one heavy and one light syllable each, that is either LH or HL, then the primary stress will fall on the heavy syllable. And in case of HH, that is, you have in a bisyllabic word where you have two heavy syllables, um, the syllable with a long vowel as its nucleus will get the primary stress. So I have given some examples here again. So if it is two two light syllables, the first syllable gets the primary stress. And here you can see CVC, that is a heavy syllable, and then the next syllable is CV, long vowel C, right? So in this case, it's not the first syllable that gets the stress, but the syllable with a long vowel gets the stress. Um, so it was also observed that in most bisyllabic words, if the initial syllable has a short vowel, it is followed by a geminated consonant. So like you can see, if the first syllable has a short vowel, so the example here is Rusu. So the syllable structure would be ros su, right? The syllable division would be rosu. So if the first syllable has a short vowel, then it will be followed by a consonant gemination. So that is what we have observed from the data. But long vowels can have CV structure. If it is CV, if it is chordaless, the V is usually generally a long vowel. And yeah, so in bisyllabic word, if the initial syllable is chordaless, that's what I just mentioned. So if it's a in bisyllabic words, if the syllable doesn't have a coda, then um, the nucleus is always a long syllable. Yeah. And same goes with trisyllabic words as well. So we have, if there are three light syllables, like in the first example here, dishive, CV, dishive, CV, 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 which is LLL, the primary stress falls on the first syllable. Now, if you have a heavy syllable, in between, again, the heavy syllable with long vowel will have the primary stress. Now let's move on to the last example here. Vochuno. So CVC, CV, that is long, and then a short. So HHL. So in this case, the vowel with the long vowel will take, sorry, the syllable with the long vowel will take primary stress. Now the example before that, let's look at Kelchenjo. Kelchenjo, one who climbs coconut tree. We have CVC, CVC, CV. So two heavy syllable followed by one light syllable. So in this case, none of the syllables have a long vowel, and therefore the first syllable will take the primary stress. And even in the second last example here, Horana, it is two heavy syllables followed by one light syllable, and both the heavy syllables have long vowels. So in that case, the first syllable with elongated vowel takes the primary stress. So same goes with the quadrasyllabic and polysyllabic words. So what can be understood is that Heritage Konkani is a quantity sensitive language. So the primary stress is decided by the quantity of the vowel, right? The length or the quantity of the vowel. And we can also see that it is a left dominant language, and it is unbounded. Left dominant because the primary stress, if it is it mostly goes to the left hand side in the absence of a heavy syllable. And bounded because the prominent syllable can be far from the word boundary. So according to Hayes parameter this of stress, it can be understood that Heritage Konkani is a left dominant, unbounded, and quantity sensitive language. Now, to conclude and to refer back to the questions that we raised in the very beginning, we can say that Heritage Konkani is not entirely in danger, or it is not in the verge of losing it altogether, but certain specific distinguished features are getting lost because it is it's used as a minority language and because of the predominant influence of Malayalam. And another thing is that the stress pattern of heritage Konkani is really interesting because it's very different from the stress pattern of Goan Konkani. So according to Miranda 2003, this was a study conducted on Goan Konkani. um, the the stress pattern goes like this. So if both the syllables in a bisyllabic word um, are strong or weak, the final syllable gets stressed. So regardless of the vowel length or heaviness of the syllable, the final syllable gets stressed all the time. But that is very different from different to the heritage Konkani spoken in Kerala. And we can see that the stress pattern of heritage Konkani is very much similar to that of Malayalam. And it's very different from the Goan Konkani. So again, what I would like to reiterate is that the status of Konkani in Kerala and especially Kochi in this scenario, um, I wouldn't say it is under threat because the attitude of youngsters towards the language is very positive. But because of a lack of proper documentation and proper literature and all of that, um, the features, the distinguished features like nasalization or aspiration and stress pattern, these are all getting changed. This, of course, obviously it's under the influence of Malayalam. So this is how heritage Konkani is different from the Goan Konkani, and this is the current status of Konkani in Kerala. So with that, I would like to conclude my presentation here. Thank you so much for your patient listening.
Thank you so much, Reshma. It was a wonderful presentation. It was so detailed. Uh, may I now invite the expert this evening, Professor Niladri Dash, to give his
Should I be
expert
visible?
opinions. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
better.
definitely. Yeah, okay. So first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Reshma Jacob for her elaborate presentation on the phonological inventory of heritage Konkani in Kerala. Now, obviously, I have some questions, but I would rather change those questions in the form of suggestions, so that I assume that this is not your exhaustive study on the data. Okay, perhaps you have started because the total number of informants you have taken for your study
Right.
is only 20. Yeah, 20
Yeah.
and 20, 40 people, 20 male and 20 female members. Now, if I'm not mistaken, with regard that you intend to go for an elaborate study on this particular topic, then here are my suggestions. First thing is that the first part is data elicitation part. Okay, so there are three important aspects. First is data elicitation component. Second part is data processing component. Third part is data analysis and inference deduction part. So some suggestions with regard to your data elicitation. You have mentioned that you have collected only from 40 people, 20 male and 20 female members, but you have not provided the demographic variables or the demographic profile of the informants. And you have not mentioned that although in the course of your talk, you have said that younger generation are more interested to preserve their ancestral language, but you have not mentioned in the data that how many younger people are actually interviewed and the kind of data you have collected.
Yeah. So can I answer to that question?
Now, these are my not questions,
Oh,
I'm suggestions only.
right.
I'm not
Sorry.
asking any question.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
you have to give these kind of demographic profiles of the profile of the informants. Second thing, important part is that the methodology you have applied for data elicitation. We have no idea what kind of methodology you have applied. The instruments, the technology, and the methods. Is it face-to-face personal interactions, or you have used some tools? How the data are actually elicited from the informants, and what kind of questionnaires you have used to elicit your data. There is no information of that kind. So my second point is that you give full details about that aspect. Third part is, once you collect the data, you have mentioned that word lists and sentence lists, formal text and informal texts. I agree with you that informal texts are far better for understanding the phonological properties, inventory, the way they use language and all those things. So, and for this, you have not mentioned how much amount of data you have actually collected from them. So you have mentioned that you have used the lexical list provided by Professor Anita Appi. At the same time, you might be aware that now the CL Mysore Spell has already developed a lexical database which contains more than 1500 words. And recently I have come across some other databases which is available now, which contains more than 5000 words as to be considered as basic vocabulary of an indigenous speech community. So my third suggestion is that please consider if you can have the better lexical database so that you can have more lexical varieties and also more varieties with regard to the aspects you are actually interested in. Second important, fourth component is that with regard to the data analysis methodology or data processing, how did you process the data? Is it only you have worked on the audio data or you have transcribed it? If you have it transcribed, what is the methodology you have applied on it? Because when you identify the segments in a language, whether your identification is valid or not, that has to be attested. Okay. So cross-validation may be required. So use of new technology, new devices, new methodology, new software can give you far better interpretations of the data, better analysis of the data, better processing of the data. So you have not mentioned anything about how you have processed the data. Next point, you have not mentioned anything about the method of analysis of data. What kind of analysis or process you have applied on it? Is it purely heuristics? Is it your only personal impressionistic? Or some other technology, some other devices, some other standard methods of phoneme analysis which are already available and which are already used in documentation or development of, say, phonetic reader for endangered languages. You have used those methodologies. So you have not mentioned any of these things. So these are some of the observations. Then I can ask you some questions, small questions. So as you have already mentioned that you have worked with only a small sector of people living at Kochi. So I would be interested to know what kind of impact of the Malayalam language and phonetic inventory are recorded in the data you have elicited for your study. Second important question is that role of suprasegmentals as well as the distributional patterns of consonants in the phonotactic frame. What kind of distributional patterns of the consonants you have observed? These are the two questions about the impact of Malayalam on the language of this phonetic Konkani language, and what kind of consonant distribution framework you have identified in your database. These are two questions.
All right. I'll try to answer the question, sir. I would like to start with a clarification about the number of informants. Of course, I collected data from all age categories initially, but for this particular data that I presented today, I have only collected data from youngsters. So out of the 40, all 40 belong to the age group of 18 to 35. So I just mentioned about the elders who were not being very sure. I had to have a comparative understanding of the proficiency, I had collected data from them as well. But what is being presented here is data from the youngsters itself. So all 40 are youngsters. And regarding analysis, I had recorded and transcribed and used Prath, for the analysis. In another part of, I mean, the extended study, for the extended study, I had done the acoustic analysis as well as applied, for in order to study the prosodic, the intonation patterns of heritage Konkani, I had used the auto segmental framework as well. But since due to the paucity of time, I thought I'll only present this part of it. But yeah, coming back to your question, sir. um, Okay, if I remember all of that correctly,
Impact
the
of Malayalam on the Konkani language.
right impact of Malayalam on Konkani language. Yes.
Malayalam
So
phonology, yeah.
yes.
Phonology invention.
So right. So majorly what I have observed is that, um, like I said, nasalization, the features that are not there in Malayalam are being omitted from Konkani as well. But what is interesting is that Konkani has more consonantal and vowel sounds. Right. In Malayalam, we don't have a lot of vowels that are there in Konkani. So most of those vowels that are not there in Malayalam are being replaced. Most of the features like nasalization and aspiration are being replaced, but otherwise rest of the sounds are maintained. And I did not honestly observe any other influence, like any specific Malayalam sound being taken, or being included in the phonemic inventory of Konkani. I could not find that. Yeah.
And what about the phonotactics of consonants, distribution of consonants across lexical structures or word structures?
What structures, as in
the consonants, how the consonants are actually distributed in formation of words.
The clusters?
Not clusters, all consonants, whether they have the same kind of distribution, word initial, word final, or medial, or
right.
there is any constraints in formation of clusters.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
that
understood,
kind
sir.
of
Understood, sir. So these are the word initial consonants, word middle consonants, and word, so only sonorants are in the word final position. Otherwise we have word initial and word medial consonants as listed here. And again, here in the word medial position, I have mentioned the aspirated sounds like bh, th, dh, kh, gh. And like I said in the presentation, in fast speech, these are not maintained mostly, right? So that is one observation. And about clusters, if I may share another um, page, I don't know if you can see another sheet here. Can you see the Word documents?
No. But anyway, you can just
Yeah.
tell
So
us.
the clusters, we have again, clusters are mostly with sonorants ma, na, ra, wa. And most of such word initial clusters in heritage Konkani are actually long words, right? Like prabhat or brahmana or brahmu, trishna, right? These are all mostly borrowed words, so word initial clusters. So again, we have clusters with consonant and ya, like say for example, nyaya or vyakul. These are also borrowed words. So in loan words, at least I haven't found consonant word initial clusters that are originally Konkani, but mostly like words like spardha or skanda, smaran, smriti. These are the, or most of the word initial clusters were borrowed. And yeah, so that's what I can remember right now from what I've done, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
My questions are over. Now it is open to the whole audience.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, sir. Yeah, I'm so glad about the inputs that you gave me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. May I, can you allow expert? Can you
Yes,
allow
sure,
me?
sure, sure,
Yes,
sure.
yes, it's
Please
open
go ahead.
to the audience. Yeah.
Yes, Madam Jacob. I have 4 elementary, not questions, but queries.
Yes.
First is that this Kerala Konkani, that one extensive descriptive study has been done by Dr. J. Rajati in the decade 80s of the last century. So have you consulted that document?
Yes, but then that was not actually, about the Kochi Konkanis and the GSB Konkanis, right? So, like I mentioned, my study is about the GSB
Kochi only.
Konkanis
Okay.
in Kochi, only in Kochi,
Okay.
Matanjeri, to be very precise.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for this information. The
Yeah.
second one is regarding this very elementarily, it is not very crucial one, regarding this nasalized or nasalization. So I am very interested to know whether the nasal is the segmental part or suprasegmental part, because somewhere you are telling that the nasalization means nasalized vowels are distinguishing the singularity and plurality,
Right.
if I am
Yeah.
not wrong.
Yes.
And again, in the same set of example, you are telling that Kartani as the nasalization, you are mentioning Kartani to future. So Kartani, their nasalization is appearing as the segmental part. But where in the plurality distinguisher, it is appearing as the suprasegmental part. So whether are you not overlapping the suprasegmentation and the segmentation so far nasalization is concerned?
Yeah.
So this is my second question. And
Right.
the third question is regarding this aspiration. You told about some, this example, some VH or something, groom's
Yeah.
procession or something like this.
Right.
So there, va is already a fricative. So it is fricative means friction also takes some aspiration too. So that friction is again getting aspirated. So that this actually is not clear to me. So if you throw some light, it will be this thing. I'll be
Yes.
very happy. Another
Yeah.
question
Right.
is
Okay.
that heritage Konkani you are telling that is different from these Goa Konkani, and in the gloss list you show that so many words they are taking the either the Malayalam's prefixes or Malayalam suffixes either to form a complete morpheme or to give the bound morpheme like this. In that case, may I question that whether this heritage Konkani is in a creolization process? Is it like this? Because you are deriving some new Konkani out of the acculturated Konkani, the Kerala Konkani, Goa Konkani. So if you enlighten in these 4 areas, I'll be most happy.
Right. Thank you so much for the questions, ma'am. So I think I'll start with the last one. So I wouldn't make a conclusive statement that it is in the process of creolization, but of course there is chord mixing happening there. There is both switching as well as mixing. So I would say that was an example of mixing. I do not have enough proof to conclusively say that it is in a process of creolization, because I could not find I could find that kind of mixing only in plural formation, mostly in plural formation. So that's my answer to your last question. And regarding the vorana, it was an approximate which is being aspirated, not the fricative but the approximate the I think in the data it
Wow.
was, yeah.
So
So
war
that
can get aspiration. That is my question. Whether it is a fricative or continuant, can it get aspiration further?
yeah, so I have found minimal pairs for were as well as were, right? And what so when I repeat this word with were, they would say that no, it's not were, but were that her that added her was always there.
It may be against the method Malayalam influence. It may be.
Commonly, Konkani has were and were both. It's like very commonly used. You have ma, na, were. All these are still in
Right.
use.
That's certainly not a Malayalam influence, ma'am, because that's not a part of Malayalam phonemic inventory.
Okay.
Yeah. And I forgot your second question. I'm sorry.
That the segmental, that's nasalization, whether it is
Right,
segmental or
right.
suprasegmental.
Right. So about nasalization, ma'am, like I told you in between my presentation, the nasalization has grammatical function for making it plural as well as for tense as well. But then that, since that was beyond the scope of my paper, I didn't put a lot of attention to it. Rather, I just, mentioned what is happening with nasalization. But yeah, otherwise it was beyond the scope of my paper, I would say.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, so I do have some questions. So I'm Dr. Shilpa Vedekar from Dharwad. So I've done my PhD in linguistics, and I did a contrastive linguistic analysis of GSP Konkani and Devendra Brahmin Konkani. So what you called as Konkani sonars.
Yeah.
And this was like a personal venture for me because I wanted to know, why do we speak 2-3 lines with people and discontinue speaking Konkani, saying you won't understand me, I won't understand you.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, I have this question for you. Why are you calling it Heritage Konkani? Because, your like informants are GSBs basically, and GSB is the most prominent dialect of Konkani because they were the ones who did a lot of writing. So that's why it's overall everywhere GSB Konkani, irrespective of which state you pick. So why again this additional term of calling it Heritage Konkani? I'll also
Right.
tell you an interesting fact. When it comes to Kerala and Konkanis, you must have heard about Hortus Indicus Malabaricus,
Yes.
Dutch government's work. So you have a screen printing done of, an acknowledgement or something that they gave. And the Konkani written there and the Konkani we speak today is still the same. There's not much change, irrespective of it being GSP or Devadya Brahmin or any other communities, we still speak the same. And moreover, when it's a study about Konkani, comparison with present day Goan Konkani is a totally wrong approach because the Konkani in Goa is not the Konkani we once spoke. But all the migrated communities, they are the ones who carry actual Konkani with them because they didn't mingle with neighbors and it didn't happen to change, irrespective of what place you move to. But that's not true of Goan Konkani. It's very different. Like I being a Konkani person, it takes me time to understand what they're speaking. It doesn't sound like Konkani. I can speak fluently with any other state, Karnataka, Kerala, any other community. Of course, we do have some differences, but yeah, comparison with Goan Konkani is not the right thing. And I'm very curious, why Heritage Konkani? Why not just simply GSP Konkani or
Right.
GSP Konkani of Kochi?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I would say, I use the term heritage because I was going according to what Walls and Montrul, Silvina Montrul, Montrul's definition of heritage language. So according to Montrul, heritage language is a language of a minority, language of the immigrants, a language which is used, which is not a primary language. It may be the first language but not the primary language. So the Konkani in Kerala ticks all these boxes. It is a first language, but it is not the primary language. In social domain, in political domain, it is not the dominant or the primary language, and it is a language of the immigrants. It has a minority status in the state. So since according to Montrol's and Wall's definition, it ticks all the boxes, I call it heritage Konkani.
But if you talk about a language like Konkani, we are a minority in literally all the states we stay in.
Mm.
And there was some other aspects that you mentioned. So it's like any Konkani you pick, it'll tick all the boxes. But
Yeah, it's heritage.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, but
Ah,
and again, you say it's heritage Konkani, which dates back to something spoken once upon a time, and then you say,
no, no.
okay,
Heritage Konkani doesn't mean that it was spoken once upon a time and not in use anymore. It simply means that it's a language of immigrants and it has a minority status. So
but
that's all.
why just go by somebody's definition? Because the word heritage itself, leave
Mm.
aside Konkani or anything, the word heritage itself signifies something that once was. Heritage, monuments, stuff like that. So that's the kind of impression it gives. So when anybody is looking at a heritage Konkani, the first impression is you're talking about, okay, the pure form. Somebody, once spoke like this, which is
Right.
that's not the case, right?
I think that's a problem with us taking the word heritage very literally, but I am using it in the context of what Montreux and Walls have used. And heritage language studies are like a, even my language Malayalam. If I'm looking at the Malayalam speakers in America, that is heritage Malayalam. It's not like Malayalam is, that was something that was used many years ago and not in use. So according to that definition, it qualifies to be called as a heritage language. In fact, any language which is the language of immigrants and has minority status is qualified to be called as a heritage language.
Okay, because I did a Google search and I was like, nobody else is using this term. Already, it's quite a complicated stuff when it comes to Konkani, because when we are supposed to write some literature stuff, we really don't know what dialect to write in. Do you write it like the JSPs or do you write it like the Mangalorean Catholics? So again, why additional?
So I would not call it or I'm not preferring the term GSB Konkani, because when I say GSB Konkani, it has to be same all across. It has to be
It
the
wouldn't
same
be.
by all GSBs, right? It that is
Any
not
language wouldn't
right.
be the
Yeah,
same.
so that
Right.
is not the case, right? So GSB Konkani is that is spoken in Kochi is different. GSB Konkani that is spoken in Kasargod or in Alapura or in
Very little.
Trivandrum in
It's,
Kerala is different. So which is why
it's
I didn't
only
want to use
very
the
little
umbrella
difference.
term GSP, rather use the more academic term which has been approved by a lot of academicians. That is my logic and my reason, my rationale to use it or call it as heritage,
All right.
not because it was once spoken and not used anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if that is how it was
That's
conveyed.
the impression it gave, and I was like curious, what's this?
No, which is why
Thank
we're
you.
looking at the current speakers, right? We're not
Yeah.
looking at how it was once and how it is now. No.
Uh,
Any more
Hi.
questions?
Yes, ma'am. I just had one.
Yes.
Yeah. This is Govind Mokkar. Basically a Konkani speaker from the Goan Konkani variety, and I was very keen to know that we are having such a talk. So, I have just two queries, I would say, and not questions as such. One thing, I'll take one at a time. I wanted to know whether the nasal aspirations, more, no, you mentioned that these are mostly found in the initials and not in the medial or the final positions. I wanted to know, since your data is a contrastive data and you already introduced, asked the older generation as well as the younger generation. I just wanted to know which is more often used. Is it mostly used by the younger generation or the older generation? This is my
In
first question.
Yeah, thank you so much. Interestingly, the younger generation is using the aspirated nasals in the initial positions. I mean, the older generation, they rarely use aspirated nasals. This was my observation. And among the older generation, the male speakers hardly used all of that, but the women speakers were more ready with all of this, and they also knew a lot of Konkani words, while the elder male speakers kind of fumbled and was thinking about what is the right word. The women speakers would come forward and say it, and even more the children, the kids would come up and say that this is the word or this is how you pronounce it. Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. And my second query was one of the speakers already asked you. Uh, it was asked with regards to the impact of Malayalam on cooking. Uh, I agree with both the points that you gave with regards to nasalization and aspiration, that it has been omitted by from Konkani because of the influence of Malayalam. But with regards to the addition of any of the features, I'm not sure, but I would like to know from you whether gemination seems like an addition to Konkani words
Sorry,
as
could you
an
please repeat
influence of
that?
Malayalam. Yeah, I just wanted to know whether, with regards to the addition of features, Malayalam features in cooking, do you think that gemination is one of the features which is added more in Konkani because it is influenced by the Malayalam?
Okay, I'm not sure if gemination has been an influence by Malayalam, because the work I referred to on Konkani was Miranda's work that was available, and I could not see the any mention of absence of gemination or anything of that sort. So I don't know if Malayalam has influenced the occurrence of gemination of Konkani. Sorry, gemination in Konkani. But the features, so the fact is that a lot of what I have observed is that since Konkani has a lot more vowels and consonant sounds, the sounds that are not there in Malayalam are being omitted. I could not find a lot of additions because the rest of the sounds that are there in Malayalam are already there in Konkani as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to make this statement that there is no study that which says that there are no geminations in Goan cookery. It is a true fact because we have geminations, but I think the amount of geminations that I personally noticed in any of the varieties of Konkani, may it be anywhere in Karnataka or in Kerala, these varieties have more geminations compared to the Goan variety of Konkani. Just to give an example from your data, the word chapap for print, we in Konkani, the Goan variety, we would just say chapap. So it's not a gemination there. Whereas in your data, it is a gemination. So I often notice that there are more geminations in the southern varieties of Konkani than the Goan variety. So that was my point.
Right. I would like to add to that. So intervocalic gemination is a very important feature of Malayalam, and that too was observed. I mean, I forgot to mention this earlier, but yeah, that was constantly observed in intervocalic gemination of stops. Were observed in the heritage Konkani as well.
Right, right. Thank you for the answer.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any more questions? Before winding up, I would like to request all the participants to become a member of Society for Endangered and Lesser Known Languages so that we can build up a stronger community and work for the lesser known indigenous languages together. So you have to click on the link www.cellindia.com and be a member. I believe there are no more questions. Thank you so much, Reshma, for this wonderful presentation. And thank you so much, Professor Niladri Das,
Thank
for
you.
being
Thank
with
you.
us. Thank
My
you,
best wishes.
viewers.
Thank you
Thank
to
you.
all of you. Take care. Namaskar.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.